back to a little bit more now on the SEO side.
Yep.
So, why should businesses use SEO over other conventional advertising methods such as radio, TV, print? And what are the benefits and advantages of using SEO?
Okay, well, so first I would separate investment from expense.
Okay.
So advertising of any form, whether it's search advertising, PPC, or whether we're talking radio, banner, display, billboard, is an expense.
Sure.
Right? There is some compounding factor, but people get to know your brand, they remember your brand, etc. But most of it is forming some kind of direct. You know, if you do the advertising here, you expect the financial returns to come very soon afterwards.
Okay.
But then, if you stop doing it, in contrast, those returns disappear.
Sure.
Decay.
Okay.
Now, contrast that with investments, like arguably PR, for example, where a well-structured PR campaign isn't generally about the kind of quick hit explosion and then gone.
Sure.
It's a steady build-up of saying this brand becomes known as the place to get X. Now, PPC competes as an expense with the other kinds of advertising very well, because if you're measuring ROI, which is kind of how you measure expenses, it rocks.
Yeah.
You know, it's typically for an awful lot of businesses. Certainly any kind of business where there's an online conversion.
Okay, I'd say PPC is good to start with. I would never see PPC as a long-term investment.
Well, so it's not an investment, but it's a long-term expense.
Sure.
Like there are things you spend money on forever, right?
Yeah.
Office space, all that kind of stuff that you do because you either need it to run your business or you do it because every pound you spend makes you more than a pound.
Yeah, sure.
And you do that regardless of what else you're investing in. Actually, or a smart business will spend that OPEX, that operating expense, even if they're expending capital in investment and growth.
Okay.
So I think you decouple the decisions and say you do the expense if each pound spent makes you more than a pound back.
Okay.
The big investments in SEO falls in this category.
Yeah.
You don't do on a short-term, month-by-month ROI perspective.
Okay.
You look at it more of a holistic brand building exercise. You say, would I rather run a company that, let's take an online store, for example. Let's go back to the Amazon example.
Yeah.
Would I rather run an online store that has a channel where it acquires customers for zero marginal cost? Each incremental customer costs me nothing.
Okay.
Or would I rather have to pay some proportion of my net margin for every customer I acquire?
Yeah.
Well, let's think about that for a second.
Yeah, it's not even guaranteed knowledge.
Let's go back to the first one, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where SEO is fantastic, is that over the long term, you invest in technology, you invest in people, you invest in content, you invest in all these things that build up links and awareness and fundamentally branded search volume, all that stuff. You invest in that in order to build an asset. And that assets are what people buy, right?
Okay.
People don't buy machines that have worked out how to turn £1 into £1. They do, but they would far rather buy the asset.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think, especially if you're growing a business, you want to be doing the thing that is building inherent value in your business.
Okay.
And that in no way an argument against the expenses. Like I say, you do that because it makes you money each month.
Yeah.
Why would you not? But if you always only ever do that, you're susceptible to the guys with a lower cost base who've invested over a long term to get their customers at zero marginal cost, who can then beat you.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a competitive advantage.
See,
SEO is a long term competitive advantage.
See, I like the stats from last year. Was it 19 billion on PPC compared to 1.5 that was spent on SEO? Organic gets 9% of clicks. So PPC gets 10%.
Actually, Raz and I have argued about this. So, whilst I agree with the fact that PPC is over budgeted relative to SEO, those stats I think are misleading.
Really?
Yes, because PPC is relatively easy to measure spend.
Okay.
So you ask a big business what it spends on PPC.
Yeah.
It can tell you the answer.
Yeah.
There was a question in Parliament the other day: how much does the NHS spend on PPC?
Right.
They can look in a book, in their accounts, and tell you the answer.
Right.
How much they spend on SEO? Well, that's much harder to gauge, right? Because we're not asking how much do you spend on SEO agencies.
Right.
we're not even asking how much you spend on salaries for SEO managers.
Okay.
Because remember that building your website is partly SEO.
Yep.
All of your writers are partly SEO.
SEO, yeah.
Potentially all of your salespeople are partly SEO.
Developers, yeah.
Everything you do that gets you links
Yeah.
is partly SEO.
Okay.
Now, you might not have done that stuff to get the links.
Right.
You know, think about, back to the Amazon example, back in the day, the fact they built an SEO-friendly affiliate program, Amazon Associates, was what gave them a jump out of the gate.
Sure.
They did that Associates program. I mean, I think they admitted they didn't think about SEO until years later. It was kind of an accident that it happened to be a great SEO play.
Yeah.
So, are the costs of that program included in the spend on SEO? Now, they're not, but they should be, right? Is my argument. If you're going to compare like with like. So, I don't feel like that necessarily compares apples with apples, whilst I do think that there is underinvestment in SEO. I think that that particular stat doesn't necessarily help, especially because we're trying to push this holistic view of SEO. That SEO is something that the business does, not that an SEO department does.
Right, sure.
Or even an SEO agency does, quite frankly.
Okay. I like that. I think that's quite an interesting spin on those stats.
I'm kind of arguing against myself a little bit, but but I do think that it's easy to pick numbers that seem to make sense,
sure,
and then compare them and say, look, this one's much bigger than that one. But actually, if you dig a bit deeper, you realise that that's not telling quite the full story.
Yeah. So let's say somebody came to you and they said, we've got X amount of budget per month. Would you recommend PPC or SEO? What avenue would you go down?
Fascinating. So. This happens, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
It very much depends on so many factors.
Okay.
What's the business trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Second, why do they have that budget? I'm a little bit suspicious of budgets.
Okay.
Because on the PPC side of things,
yeah,
why would you have a budget?
Good point.
Right? Because presumably you're only spending each pound if it makes you more than a pound.
Sure, yeah.
So why would you stop spending pounds if each pound makes you more than a pound?
Yeah.
Obviously there are kind of short-term cash flow things, but assuming that your business is kind of mature, then that's the argument on that side.
Yeah.
On the SEO front, it's much more of a actually I keep meaning to build out some kind of models around this so that you can kind of answer it scientifically.
Right.
But ultimately, there is no easy answer. I mean, Laura Lippe, who used to be at Yahoo, has done there were some great posts that she wrote, a series of posts about forecasting effort that you might need for SEO. Okay. So kind of boss-friendly stuff. Right. How do you make a business case to management that you need to do a certain amount of work and that is enough, and that you don't need to do twice as much, and that you couldn't achieve the same thing with half as much effort. Sure. And I guess you go through that kind of loop a few times, and I think so. PPC budgets, I'm always a kind of a little bit how did you pick that number? Okay. And SEO budgets are great if they're big enough. Yeah. And kind of pointless if they're not. Right. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a little bit like saying, I want to build an iPhone app. My budget's £500. Well, okay, but that very much constrains what kind of iPhone app you can build. Yeah. Equally, if you say I want to build an iPhone app, my budget's £1 million. Yeah. Well, you have to start saying, well, what exactly? Why don't you go and build an iPhone? Yeah. And I think, I always push it back to what are the objectives? What are we trying to achieve here? Are those objectives really doable? Okay. How much will they cost? Yeah. Then compare that back to the budget, and say, can we do it within that budget? And the PPC SEO trade-off, to my mind, is mainly a business model discussion. It's expenses versus investment, short term versus long term. Yeah. Do you want the ROI hit, or do you want to build an asset that you can sustainably improve? And there's no right or wrong. Both can be right. So, I mean, most businesses should be doing both. Right?
Yeah. I think that's very true. I think I look at PPC and think, it's not really building anything for a company. It's just your ads there, great. I'm looking at Google recently, and I did a couple of searches, and Amazon are coming up for all these different searches that I'm doing. Why is Amazon coming up for everything? Why is it there no specialist businesses coming up for this?
I mean, there's still huge opportunities, and that is why it's useful, right? Because you can make money.
Yeah.
But that's the short answer.
Yeah.
That's why you do it.
I did a search and just Amazon came up at the top. Nothing else came up. Just Amazon.
Yeah.
Come and buy the product from here. I'm like, why is nobody else doing that? So,
I mean, the space is big, and I think, in an ideal world, a kind of well-capitalised business with enough finance behind it and all the rest of it should probably be doing both, because not only can you get direct ROI from the PPC, you can build the asset on the SEO front, and there's all those kind of all the research about additional uplift. If you're in both places, you can very often get a secondary
great stuff.
increase.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's a really good explanation.